In this video, I want to share with you some drills that you can do in small spaces where you don't get a chance to get to the driving range and hit full shots. You may not even be able to make full swings. Some of these things you can do at home and they can really improve your golf, which by the time the season comes back around, you'll be able to take full advantage of. The first drill I want to share with you, which can have enormous value for golfers of all levels, is the head on the wall drill. This drill is the foundation of the golf swing for so many golfers, whether they're beginners or improving golfers looking to get better. The head on the wall drill is, like it suggests, a drill where you place your head on the wall. And in this example with this video, I'm going to use the stick that I've set up here to act as my wall, but you could quite easily do this in your house, resting your head against a wall or resting your head in a door frame. This can help tremendously with the coordination of the motion, both in the backswing, the downswing, and all the way into the follow through. I'll demonstrate this with a club, but you could also do this without a golf club if space was an issue. So taking my golfing stance and just resting my head on my wall or my stick as I have here, I can attempt to make a backswing where I maintain this touch point with my forehead on the wall. And that's going to allow me from this down the line view to make a swing where I keep my inclination to the ground. It's one of the founding pieces of a good golf swing is a golf swing. The golfer turns around this inclination, keeping their head stable. So from a down the line view, your body wouldn't be raising up and down. That's what the head on the wall drill is helping you to coordinate. The right amount of movement throughout your body to coordinate a turn while keeping your head on the wall. And then equally, as we switch to the front view, you'll have the same concept. It will be keeping your head on the wall, which will help you to make a centered shoulder turn in the backswing. That again is a real key part of a good golf swing. You won't see golfers moving, good golfers won't move off the ball. They won't have their head swaying around. So learning to move your body and keep your head fixed into a relatively stable, static position is really going to help you become a more consistent ball striker, which will ultimately help you to become a better golfer. And an extended version of the head on the wall drill, which I really like to use, helps golfers move their hips correctly in the downswing and the follow through. This is a part of the head on the wall drill that often gets missed. Most people are generally okay with the concept of making a backswing where their head stays touching the wall. Once again, I'll say that gives you that nice angled shoulder turn in the backswing from this down the line view, and from this front view helps you to make a very centered shoulder turn. So those are both desirable things and things that people generally find reasonably okay to do with the head on the wall drill. But when it comes to the downswing, a lot of people don't realize how far forward the pelvis needs to move. And by forwards, I mean towards the target. So if I rest my head on the wall, the stick in my case, if I rest my head on the wall and I go ahead and make the backswing that I want to make, I'm going to use this stick through my belt loops to help you see how my pelvis needs to move. So there's that 45 degrees hip turn in the backswing, but as I start down, the first thing that needs to happen is that this pelvis needs to move towards the target. That's the very first movement that happens. The weight shift is a lower body weight shift towards the target, while at the same time, my head stays on the wall. So I've still got my head touching the wall from this down the line view, and I've still got my head touching the wall from this front view, but my pelvis, my belt buckle, has moved forwards and is getting close to being over my lead foot. That's a piece of this exercise that doesn't get practiced enough. And you'd want to be able to keep your head touching the wall or touching the stick in my case, all the way through into this follow through until the arms are parallel to the ground in the follow through. And at that same time, this stick should have traveled far enough forwards that it's ahead of my midline. I'm using the stick that I'm resting my head on here as a reference for that. This stick isn't back here. This stick is forwards. In fact, my belt buckle is all the way in front of my lead ankle. That's the bit that many golfers struggle with. It's an understanding of, firstly, that the pelvis is supposed to move forwards, and then it's an acceptance and an understanding of how far forward it really needs to move, which is far further forwards than most people realize, and is far further forwards than is often taught. So head on the wall exercise helps you to train a coordinated backswing where all of the pieces move the right amount, and it helps you to learn to move the weight forward in transition, get the hips in front of the ball early in the downswing to make good contact, and then to keep moving that pelvis forward into the downswing. This is the point of full arm extension in the follow through, where both arms are parallel to the ground. This is the final point where the head should still be touching the wall. After this point, the body starts to come slightly out of its tilt and the head would finish further away from its starting point. Please don't try to keep your head on the wall all the way through into a full finish. You'll probably do yourself an injury. So the only point that you're going to, or the furthest point that you're going to with this exercise, would be the point of full extension of the arms in the follow through, where both arms are parallel to the ground. So now you have a great drill that you can do indoors with very little space to train the correct body pivot throughout the backswing, the downswing and the follow through. What if you have a little bit more space and you're able to swing a club, but you can't hit the ball? You can train your wrist angles using the Hack Motion wrist sensor without hitting a ball if you are able to strike the ground and get some sense of impact into this sensor. One of the best training aids I like to use with my students indoors is the divot board. The divot board is a training aid that helps you to see where your club hits the ground, because it changes color as the club strikes the mat. And we'd be looking here to help you train low point, or the bottom of the swing that was at or just slightly after the ball, as per that demonstration. But we need to be swinging fast and hitting the mat with some force in order to trigger the Hack Motion. One of the nice things about doing this without a ball is that you can really learn to see how you're moving your wrists, which oftentimes is very different to when the ball's in the way. If you can train good wrist angles and use the Hack Motion data to help you get your wrists into the correct position, then when you reintroduce the ball, you can simply just repeat your training to see those balls flying higher, straighter and further than before. So the divot board is a multifunctional piece of equipment that can help you to see your low point. Also notice whether you strike the ball towards the heel of the club or towards the toe of the club by moving the strike point around on the mat. Taking the ball away for a while can have some tremendous benefits that's often never fully realized by most golfers, because we spend so much of our time just hitting the ball. Learning to take the ball away and do the head on the wall drill that I've already shared with you today, and this exercise here, can really start to give you a sense of different ways in which to move, which can ultimately improve and enhance your full swing. So let's go ahead and hit one and see what we get with the Hack Motion wrist sensor. So in that example, I was a little too extended at the top and a little too flexed at impact. I was able to get my low point just after the ball, which I'd be very happy with. So the contact point on the ground here is good, but I'd want to keep working to get my wrist angles into those green positions. So based on the knowledge I get from that first one where I was a little too extended at the top, I'm going to go ahead and try and make an adjustment there that will help me get my wrist into the correct place. So I was very much able to keep the low point in the right place. I fixed the top of my swing and just had the wrist a little too flexed at impact. For many of you, having the wrist too flexed would actually be a good place to be. Having the wrist turn and the club face a little too strong would be a nice place for you to be when you practice, especially if you find yourself falling into the category or the range of being too extended throughout the swing. That would be someone who hits the ball off to the right, typically people who slice. But you can see here how I've got the low point nicely on lockdown, controlling the bottom of my swing nicely. And I just want to make sure as I come down, I'm matching my wrist angles throughout the swing. Quick question for you. Did you know that 80% of your golf ball's direction comes from the club face angle at impact? And it's your wrists that control that angle. If you want to hit straighter shots and add more distance to your game, then check out the link in the description below. Lost it again a little bit there. So you can see how taking the ball away can still help you to then just focus purely on the angles of your wrists. Every time I strike the mat, I'm getting the feedback of where I'm hitting the ground, and that's going to be a skill that I want to develop and improve if I'm going to improve as a golfer. There's a direct correlation between your ability to hit the ground in the same spot, which should be just after the ball, somewhere here, and your handicap, your skill level. There's a direct correlation between the two. The poorest golfers can't get the low point in the right place, and they have too much of a dispersion of the low point, meaning they hit further back on the ground than most people, and oftentimes will miss the ground altogether. So if you can get yourself a training aid, something like the divot board, especially if you practice indoors and you can't hit shots, just striking the mat and learning to see where that club bottoms out is going to be a really great way for you to spend your winter training. I hope you found today's video useful. If you do have a small space in which to work from, you can still improve your golf, whether that's your body movements as described with the head on the wall drill, or whether that's your wrist motion and your low point control using something like the divot board. If you want to learn more about how to train your wrists using the Hack Motion wrist sensor, please click on the link in the description of this video, which will take you to more videos about wrist training with Hack Motion.